Earlier in the programme, we touched on exercise being a cause of hypos. In this module, we're going to learn about exercise in greater detail, how it affects blood glucose levels, and how you can reduce your risk of hypos during and after exercise. Firstly, here are some brief explanations for the key terms we'll be discussing. Prolonged exercise. For young children aged 4 to 10 years, it is 15 to 30 minutes of light to moderate aerobic exercise, such as light jogging or longer durations of walking. For older children, aged 11 to 17 years, it is 30 minutes to 1 hour of moderate aerobic exercise, such as running, swimming or cycling. And for adults aged 18 plus, it is 1 hour or more of moderate aerobic exercise, such as jogging, swimming or cycling. Strenuous exercise. This is classed as high-intensity exercise with minimal breaks. Generally, strenuous exercise will leave you breathing hard and fast, and your heart rate will rapidly increase. It is recommended that you test your blood glucose before, during and after exercise. You should also test regularly when you have finished exercising to make sure your levels don't drop later on. And if your diabetes is treated with insulin, then after exercise you should test your blood glucose before each meal and before bed. There are 2 ways you can reduce the risk of exercise-related hypos. The first is by eating some carbohydrate before, during or following exercise. The second is to reduce your insulin. Lowering your insulin before, during and after exercise is only recommended if your doctor has explained to you how it can be done safely, regardless of whether you take insulin or glucose-lowering tablets. Make sure you have some quick-acting and slow-acting carbohydrate with you. To help reduce the risk of a hypo, or if your blood glucose is slightly lower than normal, you could eat some carbohydrate before or during exercise. During prolonged exercise, you should test your blood glucose at regular intervals. Keep an eye out for hypo symptoms in between blood tests too. If you feel a dip in energy or a bit unwell, test to see if this is because of a hypo. If you have a hypo during exercise, treat it with 15 to 20 grams of quick-acting carbohydrates such as sweets or a glucose drink, as well as some slow-acting carbohydrate, such as fruit or a cereal bar. Don't start exercising again until your blood glucose has returned to normal. After prolonged or strenuous exercise, you could reduce your insulin later in the day to reduce the risk of a hypo. You could lower your mealtime insulin for meals or your long-acting insulin in the evening or nighttime. If your blood glucose is a little lower before bed and there's a risk it could drop overnight, you could have some carbohydrate to keep your levels stable. Hot weather can increase the risk of hypos if you treat your diabetes with medication that can cause hypos, such as insulin. Therefore, you could consider reducing your insulin levels if you'll be exercising in hot weather. In hot weather, some hypo symptoms can be missed, such as excessive sweating and tiredness, because you may wrongly attribute them to the heat. It is important not to dismiss hypo symptoms as being due to the weather, and you should test your blood glucose immediately. You should also increase your fluid intake in hot weather to reduce the risk of dehydration. If you become dehydrated, your blood glucose levels will rise. If you suffer from hypo-unawareness, it is better you allow your blood glucose to run slightly higher than normal during and following exercise. This will help to reduce the risk of hypos occurring and is the best way for you to regain your hypo-awareness. Did you know that when a person starts exercising, their muscles use glucose from the blood to supply energy for movement? As a result, that person's blood glucose levels will drop. Following this initial drop, as the person continues to exercise, their muscles will also draw on their own stores of glucose. In its stored form, it is called glycogen. After exercise, the body works to fill those depleted stores of glycogen back up. To do so, it takes glucose from the blood. This process can go on for hours or even days after intense exercise. It is important that blood glucose levels are regularly monitored following the exercise so that this process does not cause unexpected hypos.